Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Ballantyne, managing editor here at Foreword Reviews, and you are tuning in to another one of our Petit Forewords, bite-sized interviews with indie authors. Today, we are talking to Lucianne Tonti, who is many things, among them the fashion editor at The Saturday Paper, a weekly newspaper out of Australia, a contributor for Closet Clinic, which you can find in the lifestyle section of The Guardian Australia. But we are here to talk about her recently released book, Sundressed, Natural Fabrics in the Future of Clothing. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, well, just to dive right in, your book, you talk a lot about, it's about sustainability, sustainable fabrics, how to find them, how to take care of your clothing. But that word sustainable, you say, has become so diluted as to practically be meaningless. So for people who are looking to shop more sustainably, what would you say they should look for to distinguish between authentically sustainable clothing and brands versus items and companies that are just giving that lip service?
Okay, that's a fabulous question right off the bat. So look, the hardest thing about sustainable being co-opted by so many different companies now is that it does make it very difficult for consumers to tell what is sustainable versus what is just being marketed to them as environmentally friendly when there's no basis for those claims. So the first thing you can look for is what the material is made of. So if you're opting for something made of natural fibers, that's going to be better for the environment than something made of polyester. And there's a number of reasons for that. Polyester or anything else synthetic like nylon is derived from fossil fuels. So there's an extraction process that's extremely polluting, not to mention that it is literally plastic. So it doesn't biodegrade at the end of its life. When you're wearing it, it is prone to stains and to hold on to body odor, which means generally those garments won't have as much longevity as something made of natural fibers. It's much easier to care for, that's more beautiful, that keeps you warmer, that's more comfortable on the body because it breathes. But look, natural fibers aren't inherently made sustainably at the moment. We have lots of potential there, which we'll get into later when we talk a bit more about the book. But generally speaking, we know that things made from wool or cashmere, we keep for a much longer period of time. There's something in our brains that views them as kind of more valuable fibers. So they tend to last for and be held onto and passed down. So that's a really fabulous tick for sustainability. And then when it comes to, say, something like linen's grown with like minimal pesticides and just with water from the irrigation of the North Sea. Most of it comes from the region between Belgium and France. So we know that linen has a lower carbon footprint than a lot of other fibers too. Cotton's very tricky. If you're looking for organic cotton, that's a good place to start. And then you can look to a number of different certifications that indicate what's happened at the factory where the garment was processed. So, you kind of want to be looking for things that indicate not a lot of chemicals have been used, that they've got waste management processes in place, and that they've used green energy. But it's extremely complicated, and my advice would be to keep it simple. Only buy things you know you're going to keep and wear for a really long time, and invest in pieces made of that are extremely high quality, because you're going to enjoy wearing them more, and ultimately that should reduce your consumption, which is what we're ultimately working towards.
Now, you mentioned there, the North Sea, France, Belgium. You talked a bit about cotton. You traveled to so many places in this book. You talked to cotton farmers in California, of all places, cashmere goat herders in Mongolia, and many other people at different levels of the sustainable fashion world. What would you say is your most memorable interaction?
Gosh, there was a lot. And I'll just clarify, I wrote the book during lockdown. So there were farms I could get to, but also there were farms where I didn't actually get there in person. But I had a really fabulous interaction with Doug Fine, who's a hemp farmer in New Mexico. And he is a very charismatic person and a real character, and he had lots of really interesting things to say about the potential for hemp production to really rehabilitate soils and landscapes all over the world. In terms of the farms I visited, I physically was able to visit. There was a wonderful cotton farm in Queensland in Australia, and called I've forgotten the name of the farm, Super Cotton Australia, and that in experience was really fascinating because cotton is such a tricky crop to grow in a sustainable way, and it's extremely difficult to grow in Australia because we're a very dry continent. So learning from him and getting taken around and shown all of the different techniques and things he was trialing in his pursuit of a regenerative cotton farm was really interesting. And also because I don't know if you've ever seen cotton come off the plant, but it literally comes off the plant like bright white and fluffy. Like it is a truly amazing crop. And once you kind of see it in that context and realize that it's ready to go, like it's not like linen or wool or that's got to go through a number of processes before it's ready to be spun. You want to touch it, you want it on your body immediately. So it's it was a really nice experience.
Yeah, no, I've never seen it in person, but I've seen the pictures, and you look at the cotton pod, and I'm like, that's a cotton ball. That's straight what comes out of the top of my pills. Like that's what that is.
That's what it is. Exactly. It's amazing.
Now you mentioned earlier, and we're talking about buying like high quality clothes that you're going to want to keep, that you're going to want to keep wearing, and that you can keep wearing because they're meant to last. But you also acknowledge very frankly in the book that money is a barrier for a lot of people in being able to buy fewer articles of higher quality clothing rather than a new pair of fast fashion jeans or whatever it may be every 6 months or so. What are some baby steps you think people can take to support slow fashion and sustainability without breaking the bank?
So the most obvious one is shopping secondhand. And so there are really amazing sites that are global, Vestiaire, The Real Real, where you can buy really, high quality luxury for items for a fraction of what they would normally cost. And I think that's a really good entry point for anybody who is used to, or who is accustomed to buying fast fashion brands, because you'll be spending about the same amount of money, but the thing you'll be getting, even though it might be worn, sometimes they're really barely used at all, these items, and you'll notice the difference in the weight of the denim, or in the way that the seams are sewn down, and in the feel of the fabric. And I think when we start to re-educate ourselves around what a good quality garment feels like, that becomes a really powerful tool as a consumer, because you're not just looking at the price tag anymore. You're looking and able to discern for yourself how well this item is going to serve you in your wardrobe.
And last but not least, do you have any other projects in the works right now that you could share a little bit with us about?
Well, I'm in conversations about my second book, which will be focused on the special relationship that we have with our clothes, because that's a really important part of sustainability, reducing our consumption and understanding that, we really do carry our clothes with us everywhere we go. We imbue them with memories. And when we start to view them like that, we don't want to just buy a new t-shirt every, 6 months. We want to make sure that we have a long-term relationship. So that's one project that I'm working on. And there are a few other things in the works, but I'm probably not allowed to talk about them. But yeah, that's the big one. And also my Guardian column, Closet Clinic, which is an ongoing labor of love, which is all about how to care for your clothes so that you can keep them and wear them for a really long time.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to your second book and all of your secret projects. And in the meantime, we'll find you at the Closet Clinic.
Thank you.